Game over. Game over. Lights out. You've just been completely obliterated publicly. With
Cool.
your wait, you've been caught. You've been folded like a chair, caught with your pants down.
I and using I as a variable that encapsulates your experience, right? If you say that's what Dasein is, that's what being is fundamentally, you can't really say anything more than that. So I could say, if you were blind and you were deaf and you had no memories and you had no sense of taste or touch, what would that experience be like? Any of the answers that you give are going to be wrong. You run out of words, and the reason you run out of words is because you've reached bedrock. You've reached what you actually are. Just like a fire can't burn itself and an eye can't look at itself. So just because you can't describe it doesn't mean that it's not a fundamental. It actually leads me to the idea that it might be fundamental.
Yeah, but what we're challenging isn't like whether or not it's fundamental. What we're challenging is what it is, right? Like, what's
Yeah.
the ontology of this thing that we're saying? What is consciousness? Is it material? Is it not material? Does it?
No,
Presumably
I
it's
don't
not
believe.
material. I mean, but in what sense?
Yeah, it's not material.
In what sense is it distinguished from other things that? I mean,
What's wait? What?
where is it?
How is it? How is it not material?
Because matter I mean, I'm an idealist. I don't think that matter is fundamental at all. I think that all of space-time is a
Well,
some kind of data compression mechanism.
I
So
mean,
matter we can just kind of dismiss.
but
What's fundamental is does
like,
not consist of space or
yeah,
time.
but that Biscuit. I mean, yeah, that's your view. I was wondering to see if like you had like an argument.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
an interesting view.
like my argument is uh, I'm unwilling to leave what I started with. So what I'm saying is the only thing that I cannot deny is that I'm having a conscious experience.
Right.
You can't deny it either. I can't deny it. Scientists can't deny it. So anyone who supposes that anything outside of my awareness gives rise to my awareness, the burden of proof is on them. Because we've never, ever, ever seen, nor can we ever see or perceive anything outside of our experience, because awareness is a prerequisite. So I even think that the subatomic particles and the everything from the subatomic to the trees and cars that we perceive, um, all of that stuff are just icons that we evolved to experience for the chores of feeding, fighting, and fleeing and reproducing. None of that stuff is real. So our perception is fundamental. Our perception is all that we've ever had and all that we will ever have. And these dissociative boundaries that we have, like my body as opposed to your body and Daniel's and Deepak's, those are all just dissociative boundaries. They're not true. On a fundamental level, there is only one consciousness, and we're having a dissociated experience right now. But when we die, we go back to that same consciousness. And the reason that, so, I mean, you might say,
Mhm.
well how do you defend this idea? Well, the reason I don't think that my idea needs defending is because all I am is defending what the only thing all of us cannot deny. It makes no sense that I would have to give an argument for something
No,
is that's
no, no, no.
impossible to
Well,
deny.
the art. Look, what we wanted an argument for was the argument that mental properties aren't identical to physical properties, right?
Sure. And I've never observed a physical property. All I have is my experience.
Right. So there is no physical?
No.
There is,
There
there are no
yeah,
physical properties under your view.
there are no real physical properties.
What do you mean by no real physical properties? That physical properties are just like illusory under your view. They're just like an extension of
Well,
like
let's
my experience.
let's take an example like a tree, right?
Sure.
I'm in my car right now. I see a tree in front of me. If I told you to imagine a tree, you could likely imagine it, and I might draw something similar if I drew a tree. If I left and there was no one else around. Say every human being and every animal
Mm.
vacated Spokane, Washington. Would this tree still be here in the absence of any conscious being?
Yeah,
Well,
but
I think in order to answer that,
doesn't your view rule out the metaphysical possibility for physical properties to exist?
the metaphysical possibility for physical properties to exist, I would have to have you unpack that. But I mean, all I was saying is that
Look. Is it is there at least a set of metaphysically possible worlds where physical properties exist and
why
no
not?
minds?
Yeah, yeah, there's a possible world because it doesn't violate logic that
Okay.
may be the case. I just don't think that that's the actual world.
So premise one, anything that is conceivable is metaphysically possible. Premise two, it's conceivable that physical properties exist without minds. Conclusion one, therefore it's metaphysically possible for physical properties to exist without minds. Premise three, if it's metaphysically possible for physical properties to exist without minds, then idealism is false. Conclusion two, therefore idealism is false.
Yeah, I would attack the first premise, but that's the
Wait,
only one that I
well,
followed because that
so
that that that
what's
that
the
uh,
objection?
that
What's
Aristotelian syllogism was really long,
Yep.
so I couldn't follow all of the premises to the conclusion. You'd have to back
What
channel me.
do you object?
Say
You
again,
object?
objected
Daniel.
to the first premise that conceivability implies metaphysical
Yeah.
possibility. This is just
Right.
weird because
Yeah, well, that's not exactly what you said. I think you were talking about possible worlds in the beginning.
no, I was saying anything that is conceivable is metaphysically possible. That's just to restate the conceivability principle.
Anything
Yeah,
that's conceivable
Metaphysically
is possible
possible.
in some possible
Yeah,
world.
Metaphysically possible.
metaphysically possible.
but I thought that's what you agreed to
I
initially.
thought
Sure,
that's what
sure,
you
sure. So
agreed to. So premise
yeah,
two,
I'm no, I think your syllogism was just really long. So by the time you got to the end of it, I probably misheard you or rearranged the original premise. But so I do agree with the first premise.
yeah, so premise two, it's conceivable for physical properties to exist without minds, right? Conclusion one, therefore it's metaphysically possible for physical properties to exist without minds. That's the first half, right? The second half is premise three, if it's um if it's metaphysically possible for
Yeah,
physical properties to
I,
exist
I
without minds, then
I might
idealism
disagree
is
with that
false.
second premise then.
Also, it's not conceivable for physical properties to exist without minds.
No,
Why not?
restate that premise for me.
Premise two, it's conceivable for physical properties to exist without minds.
No, you can't have conceivable and without minds in the same sentence. I reject that premise.
Look, it takes a mind to conceive those state of affairs, right?
Correct.
Not like it's not like
So it is not
somehow
conceivable that physical
somehow
objects would exist without
yeah, but
minds.
that doesn't preclude the possibility for there to be physical
Right.
properties without minds, right? Like,
Right,
can
but that
you
wasn't your premise.
imagine?
Restate your
Well,
premise.
can you premise two? It's conceivable for physical properties to exist without minds.
Yeah, I disagree. That's not
But why?
conceivable
Why?
because when you're
Well,
conceiving of
how
a
is that
physical
not?
property, you're using your mind to do so.
Can you imagine a world where there's only atoms and no consciousness?
No, neither can anyone. No one can
Okay,
imagine a
so
world in which there's
what
no
law?
consciousness. That is
What
impossible.
then? What law of metaphysics is violated? Right,
I didn't
for
say
such a state of
a law
affairs.
of metaphysics is violated. I
Well,
might say that it violates the law of non-contradiction. You're
well, you're
conceiving of
denying that's
something.
not. You're denying that's conceivable. So presumably, if you deny that's conceivable,
You
you're going to
deny
be
that it's
committed to the claim that's metaphysically
impossible.
impossible, right?
Yeah, I think that it's impossible to conceive of a world without minds
Is it possible that a
Why?
world exists without minds?
because you're using your own mind to conceive of that
You're
possible world.
using your well. I'm using my own mind to conceive of the possible world, but
So if you
my
eliminated
mind
all
doesn't affect.
minds,
Wait,
you
wait,
wouldn't
wait.
be
But
able to conceive of it.
my mind doesn't affect the possible world semantics in those state of affairs, right? My mind
Sure, it
doesn't
does.
affect what could be the case, right? Presumably, as long as, and you agree to this, that there's at least no logical contradiction
If you can
in
conceive of
No,
the
positing
he
for
mind,
did
physical
say there was a
properties
lot.
to
I'll give
exist.
you
He
a
said
test,
there was a
Darth.
logical
Darth, I'll give you a
contradiction.
test. No, I'll give you a
So
test.
now, if
If
there's
you
no
can
wait,
conceive
wait,
of the
wait,
world,
biscuit. Let me just elaborate on my point. If there's no
yeah.
logical contradiction for physical properties to exist without minds, then if you think
No, that's what he
that's not
contested.
conceivable, if you think it's not conceivable, then contest why you think it's metaphysically impossible for physical properties to exist without minds.
Okay, before I
Because
get to
you
that, I
already
wanted
agreed
to
with the
ask you a
first
question.
premise.
Right. I wanted to, like, if you can conceive of a world that exists without minds, describe it.
A world that exists without minds, well, I
The
mean,
possible world that exists
you
without
can,
minds.
yeah,
Can you give a description of that world?
a world where you only have atoms, right? Is such a world conceivable?
No, because do you understand that atoms are what we use? We've used our perception to understand
Yeah, I
the atomic
understand.
world
We
depends on
use
our
our
perception.
perception
So
to
so so,
understand the yeah, I understand that we have to use our perception,
but
right?
atoms are
In
not an
order to
ontological primitive.
I'm getting there. This is just like orthogonal to the point. I'm just
No,
saying,
you're using
well,
your mind.
but can I finish? Can I finish? Look, while it's not a point of contention to say that you have to use your perceptual faculties
Right.
in order to conceive of those state of affairs, my perceptual faculties aren't affecting the possible world semantics at play here, right? So your
Yes, they are, and
argument,
I can prove it to you.
okay, how is it the case that how is it the case
Even if
that the
even if we
speaker
eliminate
who's
your
making
mind,
the
right?
claim affects the possible world semantics?
Right. So
Right.
even though we're removing your mind, right? We're saying that this world exists without minds. I said, give me a description of that world, right? And you said that there are atoms, right? And I suppose that you're saying that there's
Yeah.
just atoms instead of like trees, for instance, because of my previous,
Yeah, there is
saying
no
that green is
consciousness
the
in
color
that
Yeah.
that.
world. How is it
Okay.
not
Okay. So
conceivable?
no, no, no. So listen. When you said that there are atoms, why should there be atoms in the world without minds? Being that the only ones that have ever perceived of atoms or thought of atoms as a concept have been creatures with minds.
Because
Yeah,
Why
but
would atoms exist in
it's
that world?
you're
conceivable.
confusing the way that we come to conceive of those things and their own existence. I mean, I'm not going to be
But they
committed
don't
to the
but
view.
I'm contesting that they have an individual existence. I believe that space and time are data compression tools for
What
evolved
does that
localized
mean?
creatures.
What does it mean for those things to be data compression tools?
It means what is fundamental is information. Like and there's something even more fundamental than that they're working on in quantum
Well,
But
when you
computing.
say
even
data
if we
compression,
granted, yeah, but even if we granted that, how does your view preclude the possibility for there to be a world where there's only physical
yeah.
properties and no minds to conceive of those properties? You're still not
Because
answering the
Can you
argument.
just Biscuit? Can you just
the only reason you think that physical properties exist is because physicists or scientists use their mind to give you a description of the space-time
Biscuit?
Yeah,
Can
but
you
reality that
just
that's
you
provide the
not.
believe.
I mean,
contradiction though?
yeah, but
Yeah.
that
What's the contradiction?
Can you like? Because you're
But
just
Is it,
like
is it
we're all
metaphysical
just wasting each other's time,
not.
man.
inconceivability
no, no,
or
no, no,
logical
no, no,
impossibility?
no, we're not. I'm showing you the contradiction right here,
No, but
right?
you agreed to it in the
He
beginning. You said
agreed
there was a
that there was
possible
no
world where only
logical
physical.
When you
contradiction.
say data
Wait. Hold on.
compression,
Everyone. He agreed that there wasn't any logical contradiction.
no,
And now
he
he's
said there
shifting the.
was a logical contradiction.
No, he agreed
Okay,
in the
then what is
possible
the
world,
logical
and now
Okay,
he's
then
changing his mind.
like I asked several people in these discussions, what is the contradiction, right? In positing a world where there's only physical properties but no minds to perceive of those properties.
What's the contradiction?
The contradiction in the world where there are properties that you can't um, perceive. The, I so right now I guess I'm trying to reach back to what I actually said because um, I'm saying if there's a world that has no minds, then that's a world that would be impossible to describe. So there could be such a world. There could be
No.
a world in which
No,
there are properties.
there's atoms in it.
There's just a
Biscuit, can I
world
give
that
you
contains
a
atoms
about
and
that?
there's no minds there to perceive them.
Yeah,
Was that intelligible, or was that just saying like gobbledygook, right? It's not unintelligible for
It's
a thinker
gobbledygook.
to. Sorry, what was that,
It
Detroit?
was gobbledygook.
Oh, be quiet. Um, when 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 I invoke such a proposition, right? There's X amount of atoms in this possible world, and in this possible world, there are no minds to perceive X amount of atoms. What we want you to do is to derive the conjunction of two inconsistent propositions entailed from that, right?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you
I don't know that I
agreed.
implied a.
I thought you agreed. I thought you agreed that um, the state of affairs would only be metaphysically impossible, at least. Now you're making the stronger claim from logical modality, and you're saying that's logically impossible.
yeah,
If you think that conceivability implies logical possibility, and the state of affairs here aren't conceivable, what's the contradiction?
I don't think that. I mean, as of now, I'm not seeing one. I think that there could be a world that exists that has
That's just
properties of some kind that and I guess the reason that I'm finding difficulty here, because I know I'm going back and forth, the reason I'm finding difficulty here is that what is a property? How do we a property is just the way that something is, and if the
well,
way that if
no.
there's an
Prop.
what is a property? How would you define a property?
I mean, I'm not. uh, You could take
If you're saying no,
properties. Properties could be like some sort of like primitive, but usually, the way I think about properties is just they're just going to be the parts or characteristic of a being, right? But again, like I don't even want to get into like the
but
semantics of what property
well,
means.
but I
But
think you
I
have to,
mean,
because
again,
you're using the term
I know
property,
I don't
and when I
see how
think of
you're
properties, I
explaining.
think of the congrees of
I
my
don't see how
sensory
you're
impressions.
explaining. I don't see how you're explaining how presumably such a state of affairs isn't conceivable, right, to
yeah.
our mind.
That's because I'm being thoughtful. I'm not going to give. I can't give you a quick answer on this. But if we go back to what a property is, um, and you say that there is some world, and in that world there are properties that are inconceivable. So there's no minds there to conceive of those properties, or for those
Hmm.
properties to play on the sensory impressions of
Yeah,
any mind.
nevertheless, they
So
exist,
so
right?
can you give me some property then, like a property of wetness or sweetness or roughness? What are the properties that you're
Well, that's weird.
describing?
I mean, I think you're more speaking of like now talked about like universals and particulars, but I
No,
mean,
because no, I think
that,
we're getting down
I
to
mean,
brass tacks here. Give me a
look,
definition of
look,
give
look.
me some property that can exist without
Yeah,
minds.
I'm giving you one, right?
Sure.
I'm saying that the atom in question has like the property of, let's say, um, containing energy, right? I don't even know why you would have to add the suffix there of ness, right? How is it the case that such and such entities have those properties, and there's no mind to conceive of those properties, and your claim that it's incoherent? I mean, you just
No, I'm
still
not. No, no,
haven't
no, no, no,
shown
no.
why it's
I'm not saying it's.
incoherent. You
Has a
I
just
guess
property of
keep
probably
has
you
a
would
just
rather
property of
say
keep
me
being.
than a
you
contradiction.
just keep going back to the same thing about fundamentality, right? Fundamentality could be true in the actual world, but not true in all logically possible worlds, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that
So,
I'm going back and forth.
well,
I'm thinking about this in real time. But what I'm asking is, because you're now assuming when you say that these atoms may have properties such as energy, for instance, um, that so
He's on a call.
that
He's on a call. Oh, there he is. All right.
yeah. So when you say that this atom has um, energy, right, and that there's nobody there to um, perceive of that energy. You're saying that, I guess what you're suggesting, and this is kind of what I find fantastic. I don't know if I have enough to say that there's a contradiction inherent in that. However, our perception of energy when it comes to particles um, is not something that is ontically real or ontologically real. It's something that we perceive when we probe for infinitesimally short distances, right? And so all of that has to do with our perception. So I think that what you're doing is you're borrowing from something that
Well,
you,
I
you,
mean, since now, it sounds like now you're conceding that there is no logical contradiction. In
sure. I
which
mean,
case,
So
it's
and
logically
I may
possible.
go back to
at least at the
Yeah.
moment,
So
right?
then your
I may go
contention
back to
towards
thinking
the
that there
second
is in the next 5
premise.
minutes.
Yeah. So then you actually haven't falsified the second premise then.
Sure. No, I mean, I'm thinking about this, and I'm kind of wondering, does it make sense to say that there are properties to something when there are no minds? Because minds assign properties.
So are you saying that properties are an aspect of intelligibility? Because
That's correct.
I think that's your argument, and Peter Kreeft makes this argument from intelligibility of the universe.
Right. So
God.
I believe that properties are something that minds assign.
Sure, but even if it requires a mind in order to assign predicates or properties onto a thing, that doesn't necessarily entail that properties and predicates upon a thing would have to depend necessarily upon the existence of a
Yeah.
mind, right? It's just, yeah, the assignation part implies a
Well,
mind.
wait, how,
What
wait,
the as wait, hold on. The assignation part implies a mind, but the existence of particulars in general, how does it follow from that the existence of particulars would require
well,
mind? Like
are these
that's
particulars abstract entities? Are they abstract objects?
no, they're concrete.
How so? What are the properties that you're describing?
What are the properties I'm describing?
Yeah, we're talking about
What why would, well, how is that like relevant, right? Like it's not like if they have a particular like property set. Game over. Game over.